Hello, everyone. This is Marcellaus Joyner, and welcome to episode 6 of Blackademia and Hip-Hop Culture, uh, a presentation by REMCo. Today, um, I will be the the featured guest, and I'll be interviewed by Candace Jacobs. Candace, if you can introduce yourself.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Candace Jacobs. I'm a STEM liaison librarian, and I am the secretary slash treasurer of REMCo. Well, Marcellus, thank you so much for allowing me to interview you. I think this is going to be really great. I love these questions, so let's go ahead and get started. So, in what ways do you incorporate hip hop culture into library programs or events to engage the community?
Well, in particular, my particular position here in my library does not allow for me to do so because just because of the subject matter. I am a genealogy and archivist by trade. So my contribution to incorporating hip hop culture into programming is actually doing it on a level in which we are trying to push it through our organization, such as REMCo. It's part of the reason why I thought of this idea to be able to um, introduce hip hop culture through our conferences and sessions. One thing I want to know because I am a historian. I was a history major in North Carolina, the greatest HBCU in the world, North Carolina A&T State University, and also consider myself a amateur sociology major. Uh, but the idea came about as I was thinking about as we were experiencing the anniversary, 50-year anniversary of hip hop, and
Mm,
you know, I always thought about how when the genre started out, no one was thinking of how um, you know people would concentrate on the music, but they weren't really thinking about how or looking at how hip hop would affect those going into the workforce. So,
mm,
the idea came about to talk to different librarians within our field, those who specifically fall in the age range of the birth of hip hop, as well as those who are a little younger, just to see how it permeates through. So I would say for now and going forward, uh, my contribution would be to to talk about the culture and how it blends with academics and academia.
mm. That's definitely something a really good area to explore because you think about it like we said sociology, and I'm a sociologist too, so like that's that's my undergrad background. It's true that you can't escape your social kind of influences and stuff even when you go into the workforce. People act like you can just leave stuff out the door. No, it's part of being who you are, and being proud of who you are, and wanting to express yourself and actually having the freedom to do so. So no, I totally get that. Absolutely. So like then how do you like balance like preserving the traditional role of a library with embracing the evolving cultural landscape, especially in relation to hip hop?
Well, I mean, I believe that's I don't want to necessarily use the word easy, but I think that's a part of the library's culture in itself. Um,
Mhm.
I remember in grad school taking my first library class, and it was I believe I can't I'm not sure if I'm saying the title correctly of the class correctly, but it may have been Intro to Library Science. And
Mhm.
one of the first things we learned in our first classes was that we are the keepers of the book.
Mhm.
Um, and I really didn't get the statement until we went a little further on in the semester. But basically, what it means is we are the keepers of information.
Hmm.
Libraries have been around almost since the beginning of time. We have been uh, human beings have been tracking their culture and writing it on tablets or putting it on scrolls, trans just uh, keeping track of information and how our society grows in every aspect. So
Yeah.
I look at it as kind of par for the course that as libraries evolve and as technology evolves, as society evolves, it's easy to incorporate it because it's a part of the American culture. Even though it's not everybody's cup of tea, but
Yeah.
you know, the United States is made up of a gumbo of cultures and of people. Um,
Yeah.
so I believe it's easy to incorporate it. It may not be done in a program, but it may be done in um, through those who are facilitating programs through the library or the librarians themselves. That was one thing that drew me to the profession. When I was in grad school and doing my internships at NC State and at the state library as well. It was the librarians are such an eclectic group of people, and you have such a wide range and varieties of cultures and how people carry themselves. I think I may have discussed this with someone else about you know, interning at NC State and seeing golf librarians and uh,
Yeah.
it was just I and then traveling being a ARL American Research Library Scholar and traveling with my mentor Jerome Olford to some of the conferences and just seeing that everybody was not that stereotypical librarian with the long dress and uh the bun in their head and everything. I really saw that we're an eclectic group of people, and probably one of the few fields where people are given a little leeway depending on where you work. Depending
Yeah.
That's very important, depending on where you work. But people are given the most leeway to express themselves, where they can be their full selves.
Hmm. Yeah. And that can definitely be a challenge, especially because, just we have respectability politics in the American workforce, and it- depending on what's considered as like widely accepted, it may not be seen as respectable or professional. And it's like, but we're not really offending anybody by just expressing who you really are. Or maybe because, if you don't have like like you said, if you don't look like a stereotypical librarian, does that mean that you don't have the same education, the same experience? You know what I mean? The same things to offer? No, it doesn't. But like you said, it just depends. And we are culture keepers, and that's the libraries that and if hip hop is part of culture now, mainstream culture actually even. It's like even, it's bled over into mainstream culture, not just in Black culture anymore. So, I think it's time to definitely to evolve in that way.
Yeah, I
But like
mean,
how do you said, well, go
it,
ahead.
it's the lead genre when it comes to music right now, and
Right.
it's it's filtered itself from just being the the holy trinity, so to speak, or the three trinities of hip hop music, breakdancing and graffiti, but
Yeah.
it's gone into fashion. Uh,
Mm.
is gone into law because as music has evolved and as it's gone through its ups and downs, especially with sampling,
Yeah.
there are laws that have developed around that specific genre of music, just because of how the music has been made um, uh, in the earlier um, in the earlier years. Um,
Yeah.
you
So it's
know,
literally changing culture, right? In
yeah,
society. Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
literally hadn't thought about it that way. And I feel like I don't even know if I've heard anybody have that kind of conversation about that. It's just all about, oh, well, certain aspects of like people just want to talk specifically about certain songs that they may or may not like, but they don't really want to talk about how pervasive it's been in American culture, you know?
Yeah, because for me, I've gone through or I've lived through every iteration of it because it's roughly about hip hop is about 6 months older than me. So
Yeah. Wow, yeah.
so I've seen every iteration and maybe in the last couple of years or the last 15, 20 years, I'm maybe not have heard all the artists because there are so many artists now, so many more artists than there were um when I was younger and growing up. But um I was gonna make a point and I just forgot.
It's okay. It'll come back around, watch.
Yeah.
Well, then let me ask you this then. So like then how do you see like the future intersection of hip hop and library services evolving and like what role do you envision yourself playing in that development?
Well, I'll address the role part and I'll go back to what I was speaking on earlier. I like to show up as my authentic self, or I try to make the emotionally intelligent choice to be my full self. Um, so my approach would be to continue to having these conversations, hopefully through the through being a part of REMCo, where we move into continuing doing and having conversations such as these with these interviews. It may not necessarily fall under the moniker of Blackademia and hip hop culture, but I really believe that we can have these conversations and get the word out through continuing to have a interview component to our section, as well as maybe even doing uh, putting some of our episodes on Spotify. Um, as far as the intersection is already here. I was seeing it in grad school. One thing that struck me was North Carolina Central has a class on hip hop culture. And at the time when I was in grad school, that class was being taught by Play from Kid and Play.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I believe Knife Wonder of from Winston-Salem and of Little Brother fame also has taught some classes. I'm not sure if it was at Winston or if it was at North Carolina Central, but it was a moment where I was going to class and Mr. Martin and one of the adjunct professors were, they were kind of, I guess, wrapping some stuff up, and he just happened to come out the door. And I don't know if it was necessarily a fan moment, but I just saw him, and I was like, man, let's play. You know what I'm saying? Just like in my head, and I could see his expression because we looked dead at each other, and it's like, it just kind of threw my head up. He threw his head up. He said, "How you doing today, sir?" I said, I'm good. I'm good." He's like, "You headed class?" Yeah. It was a short conversation, not a really big deal. But as I was walking away, I was thinking it's like 10 years before that, I was in junior high school dancing to his music.
Yeah.
So, and in a moment I'm thinking like, so we're actually we're actually teaching about our culture specifically about hip hop, so it
Mhm.
it kind of hit me. It was like, wow, it really has come a long way because we're not just talking about it on MTV or
Yeah.
discussing it amongst our friends, or it's not a side conversation within a classroom. It's actually a class. at a at a
Somebody
university.
in it, somebody that's lived it. That's,
Yeah,
yeah, that in itself is amazing because it separates the theory from like the application. And
right.
it's like, yeah, I love that. He's literally a hip hop practitioner when you think about, to put it in library terms. Yeah.
But but you think about it in this way, that also solidifies it
Mhm,
when you begin to have classes on it and studies on it.
mhm,
To me, that solidifies it on a deeper level. So the
yeah.
intersection was there, and I may be telling my my age again, but that was like 12 or 13 years ago in grad school. So, the intersection is even beyond our discussion. The discussion me and you are having right now is very much ingrained in our society. So we can't get away from it. So the best thing to do is talk about the different aspects of it and how it affects you and um how it influences you on a personal level, because as you said, we can talk about some good and bad aspects of it, but it's not all bad.
No, not, I mean, like, so many fun times, so much, raising of social consciousness and like, challenging authority, like in a good way, like what they call it now, speaking truth to power,
Yes.
that kind of that, yes, yeah. So I listen, I am here for it. So then speaking of that, so like, how has hip hop, like music, shaped your cultural identity and influenced the way that you perceive the world around you?
Well, it makes me think of the very first time I heard a rap song. I may have been 3 or 4 years old,
Mhm.
and it was the message. Um,
Mm,
so those lyrics really stuck with me, and it's something to think about as an adult. How Thinking back on how hearing that song for the first time, I'm like 3 or 4 years old, listening to "Don't Push Me" because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head,
right.
and if you go, if you go through the song and pick it apart, there's some real hard truths in that
Yeah.
song, and it's like, even at 3 or 4, I was relating to it, but to think
Mhm.
about it now is like it's kind of sad at the same time that some of those things that you were hearing in the song that I could relate to because you were seeing it in your neighborhoods
Yeah.
or in your family's neighborhoods. So,
Hmm.
it impacts me even more now. And I think about it in on a level of, this is a group of young men from New York, and I'm living in North Carolina, and it's not like it is now where you can message somebody or hop on YouTube and learn about different aspects of different cities. So, it was eye-opening that people of African descent were
Yeah.
going to do the same thing in a different city,
Right.
um, in the United States.
Yeah. I mean, that right there is just kind of like, it definitely shows, I think, the more universal appeal of hip hop is the fact that, like you said, these conversations and these experiences are like widespread. It's not just strictly insular. Oh, that's just this neighborhood. No, it's a lot of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane though. And I think like you said, it's still relevant to this day. There's still stuff going on to this day. And I think people have such a short memory in terms of like what happens in society, and that's how stuff keeps getting repeated. They're like, oh, that would never happen. Like that's why I think it's so like important, like that you're doing this series and stuff like that, because younger generations need to understand what has happened so they know what can happen,
Hmm.
and they know the things to look out for. And there's so many messages in a lot of these songs that talk about that. And if they were to listen to them, they'd be like, wait, this is still going on now. Like, yes. So get out there and like, exercise your political power, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? And actually make sure that you're doing your part to make sure this stuff don't have to keep happening.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so like so in what ways like do you think that hip hop has contributed to social and political discussions and how does that resonate with you personally?
Um, I think it's impacted the culture in general. I can think back to cult, Public Enemy's impact
Yeah.
when their first album came out. They were very much seen as a rebel group or rebel music, kind of how can I put it, the children of the Panther Party set to music. Um,
Mm,
if you want to describe them in that way,
yeah.
yeah. Uh, wow, what's the song?
Fight the power.
Fight the Power, but
Yeah.
it's a different one. I got what was his lyrics? I got a letter from the government. The other day I opened and read it, and it said they were suckers. They wanted me for the army or whatever, but picture me giving I say never. You know, um, Chuck D was coming with lyrics that really dug into life as an African American male
Yeah.
growing up in the 80s and seeing uh a lot of crazy things in New York.
Mm,
Um, and Public Enemy had their impact, but you also had NWA who hit America in a different way, in a different way. I think with them, you can definitely judge their lyrics a little harsher, but it was what was going on behind the scenes, especially with their them speaking against the police,
Yeah.
but also kind of telling the story of how they interact with the police in Los Angeles.
Mm,
It was it was eye-opening. I've always said that as the genre has grown, and each part of when you have a rapper that comes out of different areas, everybody is given their own little piece of how can I put it, putting their own little seasoning on that formula. That they have the basics to the music, but specifically telling their story and what's going on in that area.
yeah.
And I think with the introduction to NWA and talking about some of the ills of dealing with police, but
Yeah.
also gang life in Los Angeles, just really opened not America's eyes to some things, if even if they wanted to hear it or not.
Yeah. No, I totally understand what you're saying because you brought up a good point earlier about how like, we didn't have like social media and stuff like that where we could just like post things widespread and tell people what were going on in different cities. Unless you lived there, you didn't really know, and my parents were living there at that time and they were like, yeah, it's bad like that. And I'm like, you know, and they're like, yeah, there's so much, they try to shield you from as children, but they're just like, yeah, no. I mean, the way they said it was raw, they're like, but this is real. And I'm like, oh my God, but people they didn't know. And even people that live there, if they're from another community,
Mhm.
you know, they're still like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you gotta, gotta pay attention. And you, like I said, you just never know. And things are so localized, but when they start telling you what's really going on there, you start realize, oh, this is everywhere, And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of scary, but it
Yeah.
was important to open people's eyes. Absolutely. So like are there like any like particular lyrics or verses from hip hop songs that have stuck with you over time and like why do they hold that kind of significance for you?
Um, well, I would say one of the most influential artists that I really, really like is Nas.
Yeah.
it was just, when he stepped on the scene, um, he kind of changed things up where he challenged everyone else that was around him because you just hadn't heard anything like him before. Let's see what is it? Life's a Bitch. That
Hmm.
was visualizing the realism of life in actuality. And I'm paraphrasing. Forget who's the
Yeah.
baddest. A person's status depends on salary, and my mentality is money orientated. I'm destined to live the dreams for all my peoples who never made it. And
Mm.
when I first heard that, I actually had like a couple of friends who in high school that had passed away due to, and I'm not gonna get deep into it, but through violence, and other means. Um, so that, it just it really, that particular lyric, um, and hearing that in high school, and then finding out he's not much older than I am. So, he's my contemporary.
Yeah.
So he has this ability to paint such a vivid picture with his words. And
Mhm.
then it's not he says things that may shock you, but he doesn't say it to shock you.
Yeah.
He's one of those people who are able to get a point across, but do it in such a way where it's more so of a teacher teaching a lesson,
Hmm.
versus someone just putting out random music that's kind of catchy. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? He is with him, it's always a deeper meaning. So, I often found myself like rewinding his songs back, like, let me hear that back so I can see if I can catch a deeper meaning.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the first albums and one of the few albums that I can actually listen to from cover to cover when it was actually something cover to cover to listen to. Now you
Right.
digital, you
Exactly.
can listen to it in any order you want to, but back in the day, you either had a record or a tape. So,
Listen, that sometimes you had to rewind with a pencil. Now
uh,
listen.
yep,
I think wasn't his first album actually like submitted to like the Library of Congress for like cultural preservation because of significance or something like that, or yeah.
yeah, it was. It's one of those ones that stand out, and a lot of people don't know that. That's another point that we should bring out, that if your music is that impactful, your music, your poetry, um, your artistry, it if it affects the culture on a different level, it
Yeah.
will end up at the Library of Congress in some capacity. I can't say that everybody's music ends up there,
Yeah, nah.
but you have to be like a top tier artist. But
Hmm.
not only that is that it. I think in order for your music to end up there, it has to have affected culture in such a way where it can't be denied, not being preserved there.
And like you said, like even just his style changed hip hop, and people coming after him now started kind of emulating his style.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
no, yeah, that is really dope. I love that. The good shout out for the library, Cheryl. The library's trying to get put up on game.
oh yeah.
So like how has hip hop like influenced your personal style, like from fashion choices to like just overall self-expression?
Well, I mean, shoot, how could I put it? I can tell my personal story. I grew up in a household where my parents were blue collar workers.
Mhm.
So, watching the music videos and listening to the music and seeing the fashion and what people were wearing, and some of that stuff was out of reach.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, especially when you're asking I'm asking my father, and he's like, hey, it costs too much.
Yeah.
So I had to use what was in my closet to emulate whatever I was seeing out there. But
Hmm.
as I got older and began to work, I was able to purchase these, the fashion or try to keep up with the fashion.
Yeah.
Um, I guess what I would say in real time, in real time. Um, but I'm influenced by, especially when it comes to clothing and fashion. I'm influenced by a lot of different things, but I try to incorporate an element of hip hop, even when I'm dressing a little more, dapper or so to speak.
Yeah.
And we can look at in the aspects of different artists who have gone on to have clothing lines and not only just created streetwear, but also have created um, business casual clothing. Um, and at the risk of not of I don't want to say his name, but we know we have one particular artist who had a very big clothing line and had some formal wear.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
Hmm.
he will
Hmm.
he will remain nameless.
Hmm.
But he wasn't the only one. But I believe, to me, I think he had the most influence when it came to kind of not necessarily stepping away from urban wear, but getting into the more formal wear and business casual. Um,
Yeah. And kind of showing how the two can merge.
yeah. Um,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
also supporting a designer that does not necessarily share your same views or values. And it's not to negate those other ones, but it's to say, here, you have a choice of a designer who comes from the same background as you,
Hmm.
um, may relate to you on several different levels versus this designer, so and I don't know if I've gotten off in left field because you asked me about about myself.
Yeah, no, no, that makes perfect sense because when you're talking about like even just like a designer that, is kind of more relatable, like because there were even like designers like in the 80s and 90s that were trying to emulate hip hop culture, but they weren't from the culture, and even
Yeah,
the models they used to showcase the clothes were not. And I'm like, you could have picked somebody that was authentic, but you chose not to, so it did, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So it's like that does make a difference in even just relatability and like even like just relevance because it's like you can't market the culture and not include it, if that makes sense.
exactly.
Like, did you have like a piece of clothing that you were just like, yes, like growing up, you're like, this is it for me, like
Yeah, I mean, like even to the shirt I have on now,
yeah.
it's and I don't know if we would, I don't know if I could say the designer's name because I
What
don't.
does it rhyme with? Honestly, like,
Well, I'll just say the company's name anyway. It's called
okay.
Roots of Fight, and I'll just use them as an example. They do a lot of casual wear that implements history or historical athletes. But not only
Oh,
that, they also implement images from those who were freedom fighters like Nelson Mandela, um, uh, Wilma Rudolph. Uh, who else? There was somebody else they have on their roster, but the angle they take is very much hip hop. Is sweats and
yeah.
shorts and the beanies and everything. I mean, the culture is so ingrained into clothing and athletic wear. You really can't get away from it. And right now, it's one of my go-to casual
Yeah.
go-to casual designers to wear. When I just want to throw on some fleece and chill out. Um, still within my still within my element, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I had never heard of that company before. I'm gonna have to check them out. That's actually
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah, yeah. That's rootsafight.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that on the list. And Christmas is coming up, so, and my birthday. So look, yeah, looking for gift ideas. I'm just like, so, so okay. So have you ever like used hip hop like as a form of empowerment or motivation during challenging times in your life? And if so, like, can you provide an example?
I mean, I could think of just motivating myself through school, listening to such groups as like the Goody Mob.
Yeah.
Um, their song Soul Food really impacted me. It's a song that has that deeper meaning. Um,
Hmm.
because you think that at first listen or when that strikes your ear, you're thinking they're just talking about food, but they're
Yeah.
actually talking about just living life in the South in Georgia,
Mm.
and just how you interact with your family and friends with throughout the community, and um how on Sunday, that's is that communal day, whether you're church goer or not, is um everybody coming together, kind of talking about your week, hashing that week out, trying, uplifting each other around the table, so you getting actual food, but you're actually getting soul food, by interacting with your people and being fed spiritually. Um,
Right. Yeah.
Also, what's their other that collaboration with Outkast, Get Out, you got to get up, get out and get something.
Yes. How can you make it if
Now,
you try? I mean,
yeah, yeah.
right?
I mean, I can tell you, when that song came out, man, that was uh I might have been in like my junior or senior year at North Carolina A&T. Those were some rough times emotionally, you
Yeah.
know, because it seemed like that junior year was like the the longest year.
Yes, yes, it was. It was
Yeah,
definitely a limbo year. You're like, oh my gosh.
yeah, but just they'll just listening to those lyrics, like it was motivation. I'm not gonna repeat all the lyrics because some of them are,
Yeah.
but it's songs like that and artists like that strike a chord with you, because they've gone through something similar to what you have been through. Uh, and I don't want to just necessarily concentrate on Southern rap, but I will say this. Um, Outkast, in particular, changed the game when their first album came out. I think back to earlier times where it was just New York artists specifically. Uh,
Yeah.
so much so that I remember growing up, and you had those people who would travel to see their family in New York for maybe like a week or two, and come
Hmm.
back, and they have an accent.
Yeah. It was like you've been in the Bronx for a week. Quit
Yeah,
front. Right?
yeah. So when Outkast came out, that was a shift. Even though there had been Southern rappers who came out earlier, them such as UGK, the Ghetto Boys, and 8 Ball and MJG. All of them had albums out prior, but Outkast just kind of kicked the door down um, for the South. And
Yeah.
after they did that, you didn't have any more people fronting about where they were from anymore because it was cool to be from the. It was cool. They made it cool to be from the South.
Yeah. I did not know Ghetto Boys are from the South.
Yeah,
I
they're
don't know
from
what.
Houston.
I did not know that. Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Houston, Texas.
I love that. I love that. I was gonna ask about that too, simply because I'm like, so much, because hip hop really started on the East Coast. So it's like if you're from a different part of the country, like, not just the lyrics relatability, but like the cultural, the culture inside of that, because there's all these different subcultures, right, in hip hop, It's not, yeah. So I was like, that makes a lot of sense though. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like then in what ways then do you think that hip hop bridge cultural gaps and foster connections between diverse communities?
Well, I mean, you think about it, some of the earlier tours were going to places such as China, Japan, Africa. So, and you see that influence now. I mean, we have we and I don't want to get into the Olympic debacle, but
Yeah, just
we have competitive breakdancing now. So, on it is on a different level. It's like who would have thought that something that I did in my leisure would become an Olympic sport?
yes. And just for those that are really young out there, maybe watching this, Breaking was not a comedy like that.
No, no, it was a serious thing. If you need to go back, go YouTube some videos with Crazy Legs, Turbo and
Right.
Zone from the movie Breaking. Um, uh, what was his real name? Turbo's real name. Oh well, his that was his movie name. His actual break dancing name was Boogaloo Shrimp.
Mhm.
So, YouTube or Google Boogaloo Boogaloo Shrimp. Even rerun from What's Happening, he was a pop locking. You know,
Yeah.
we were getting like whether we knew it or not, I did not relate pop locking to breakdancing until breakdancing became much larger.
Yeah.
Because I think more breaking, and I may if somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think breaking became describes more so the ground moves that you're doing, but when you're up, you're popping and locking. So,
Mm.
rerun and I forgot the real name of that group that used to show up on the show sometime on the What's Happening show, but they were pop locking in the late 70s on TV. So we were already getting glimpses of it.
Yeah.
Then before music videos were out there, they're strong like that.
Wow, that's yeah, I love that. I love that, definitely. And it's true, like you said. But it's interesting to me though, like when your hip hop goes to different countries with people that maybe don't even speak the language, but there's something about it that still resonates with them,
Oh yeah.
you
Yeah,
know. And
just
I was
like
like,
right
how
now, I think Africa is having a moment with Afro beats, and
yeah.
there are a lot of African rap artists as well as R&B singers who are very popular. Like, yeah, I think everybody loves Tim's right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And you hear those influences and it's like, okay. Yeah. What producer she working with? I hear it. Absolutely.
Oh
So
yeah.
speaking are they
I
oh go
wanted to
ahead.
I wanted to mention one more artist
Yeah.
from France. He was actually you've heard of Gangstar, right?
Mhm.
Guru and Premier. Um, I had to ask because I'm a little older than you,
This is a yeah.
but he used to collaborate with a French rapper named MC Solar.
Oh.
Yeah, MC Solar. If you get an opportunity, look him up. You won't understand anything he's rapping about, but it's just you you there's translations for his music out there, but just how it sounds like it's awesome.
Oh
He,
no.
he's one of the earlier rappers from a different country raps in their own language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he would be, I love to interview people like that because you're like, well, where did you first hear hip hop? And like, what kind of topics are, important to you in your community? Like, that would be a really interesting conversation for sure. So speaking of that then, so like, are there any like hip hop artists or like subgenres that you have a deep connection to? And like, why do they resonate with you on a personal level?
I have to go back to Outkast and the whole Dungeon Family movement because as I said, when they came out. there was that a shift in hip hop that
Mhm.
went from um you don't have to necessarily be from New York to be successful as an
Yeah.
artist. Even though, there were other people from like, I think LA, LA had took off. Um, and like I said, there were you had like the Ghetto Boys, but they didn't I don't think they got the recognition that
Mhm.
Outkast did. Um, because they had that hit, My Mind's Playing Tricks on Me.
Yes.
That was like late 80s, early 90s, like almost 4 or 5 years before Outkast. So um yeah, it's really that whole the whole southern movement
Mhm.
of artists, but specifically the Dungeon Family, Goody Mob, Outkast, what's his name? Killer Mike.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't think he's a part of Dungeon Family per se, but just part of that Atlanta movement.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, we are coming up on time, so I'm gonna ask you this one final question.
All right.
What are your top five, like producers, DJs, or rappers?
I'm gonna go with my top five lyricists.
Okay.
Um, Number one, Nas. Uh,
Yes.
Number two, Big. Number three, Jay-Z. Number four, Method Man. And number
Okay.
and number five, Andre 3000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can get behind that. I get behind that
I mean,
one.
I have some people who are floating around that number five area,
Yeah.
but like everybody wants to throw Pac in there, and I know some people might get on me for this or have something to say, but Pac to me, he has a message in his lyrics,
Hmm.
which makes him great and which made his albums great, but he's not a lyricist that like grabs my ear, you know.
Hmm.
I'm gonna listen to if when he came out with something, I would listen to him, but it's kind of different with like Method Man. Like it doesn't matter what the title of the song is, even if it sounds crazy. I just want to hear what he's gonna say because his skill level
Yeah.
is up there. Like another one, and I don't want to. I'm okay. So Black Thought probably for me falls right behind Method Man, someone who's I feel is very underrated.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
I mean, he's very lyrical, and it kind of threw me off because their first album he was when you have someone in a group or in a band that
Mm.
their music is good, but you
Yeah.
didn't know they were fire like that until they started doing other things.
Yes.
And that's Black Thought, what I'm saying? So yeah, so a lot of people will automatically throw Pac up there because he's in the upper echelon of entertainers, but
Hmm.
he's probably more so like a 7 or 8 on my artist list as far as lyricism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Method Man, I had this young person the other day. We were just talking, and she was like, I just learned today that Method Man was a part of Wu-Tang. I thought he was just an actor. And I was like, ma'am,
Was this a teenager or an adult?
like early 20s.
Okay, yeah, she get a pass.
Yeah.
Pass.
I mean, yeah, I guess I could forget that, but I'm just like, it just made me think. I'm like, wait, what?
Think about it this way. I think the first major movie where he was the main star was How High with him and Redman, and that was
Yeah.
like what 2001, 2002. So if she's 20, all she knows really is him being on Power and showing up on random TV shows and movie
Yeah.
spots. More so than his music.
Yeah.
So that yeah, that checks.
I was just like, it just threw me because I was like, we not like researching stuff no more, but okay.
Yeah. In this particular time where you can literally like Google or YouTube something, but
Right. That's some good perspective though. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Yes, you have. But I was like, huh. Okay,
but
awesome.
you think about it, and it's the same thing for LL.
Oh, that's a good point.
So
Yeah.
you talk about crossover, he had been on NCIS LA. What
Hmm.
they did like 10 years.
Oh
There
my
there are
gosh.
people who did not know he was a musician prior to him being on that show. They only know of him as Sam,
Yeah.
Special Agent Sam. So,
Yeah, yeah. And even like Rizzo, like he's like directing and stuff now, right? Like,
oh yeah,
yeah, that's a good, yeah.
yeah,
I definitely think that shows the versatility though of the artist. It's like, it's not just musical artistry, but even then it's still the essence of hip hop and everything still permeates through their different like art forms and their performances and stuff and their direction styles and all that. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This is an awesome conversation. Do you have anything you want to say to close us out?
Um, I've enjoyed doing the interviews and the series. Like I said, hopefully, this is something that REMCo will carry over for the next couple of years. Um, we can continue doing Blackademia and hip-hop culture, but I could see conversations going in different directions, and I don't know. I'm excited for the future, and excited to talk about culture and academics.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been truly amazing. And I hope everyone out there who's watching it, hope you guys enjoy, get something from it. And, feel free to reach out to REMCo. You have any questions or comments, or if you even want to join in on the conversation.